Students, what's the most insane interaction you've witnessed between a teacher and parent? In my junior high school, we had a Vietnam vet for a science teacher named Mr. V. He was the kind of dude you just could sense had his crap together in times of panic. In the 3 years we were there, I almost never saw him do more than crack a calm smile. Then, in 8th grade, this girl, Amy, who showed up late to our first period class every day and was kind of quiet, didn't show up at all. For some reason, instead of marking her absent, he called the office and had a very quiet conversation. He looked visibly disturbed and shaken. The next day, the girl showed up to class just a bit late, but with a broken nose, a black eye, and her jaw wired shut. Even though this was 25 or so years ago, I can still see the look on Mr. V's face when he saw her. It was pure murderous fury. He was lit on fire inside. And even more terrifying, he pulled her into his office, had a calm conversation with her, and sent her to the nurse. He then told the rest of us that nobody was to say anything to her about it, as she'd had an accident and was embarrassed. Most people didn't care. Quickly the rumors spread. Ridiculous things like, "Did you see Amy? Jesus. Somebody kicked the crap out of her," or "I heard it was because she was screwing Mr. V and his wife found out." So on and so on. I happened to be passing the office on my way home that night, and I saw the principal, 2 police officers, Mr. V, and Amy in there with the door shut. She was crying. One of the police officers noticed me looking and pulled the blinds. I normally walked home, so I waited. I think school got out around 2:30 or so, and I usually hung around with some friends to listen to music or play basketball for 30 minutes or whatever before I started walking. I waited outside the front of the school until almost 4 p.m. Finally, a car pulled up, and this dude gets out looking freaking pissed off. He is swearing to himself, and as I'm the only one out there, he says, "You? Where's the office?" I just pointed, but he didn't make it to the door. The 2 cops came out quickly, one in front and one behind. The one who approached the guy started telling him to calm down. This angry dude just loses his crap and starts screaming, "My damn daughter should have been home an hour ago, and I had to leave work because of you pieces of crap. I'm gonna sue," and blah, blah, blah. Basically just furious. The cops are trying to calm him down. Then out of nowhere, Mr. V comes out the side door of the office, his face lit like the fires of hell, and he just straight up goes full horizontal, for feet in the air, and body tackles this guy. In seconds, he's on top of him, and has probably hit the guy 10 times, closed fists and all. Worse yet, he's not saying anything. He's not making any noise, just deep, rhythmic breathing like you do when weightlifting. Short breath in, long breath out. The cops actually kind of take their time getting him off the guy. One casually handcuffs the guy, the other handcuffs Mr. V, who is standing untouched save for some bloody knuckles, and is just breathing steadily, face red from exertion, eyes wide in anger and satisfaction. He still hasn't said a word. Nobody seems to notice me. The principal then calls to me, "Come in here. Get inside. Or go home. This isn't about you." I decided to walk home. As I'm heading up the road, an ambulance, sirens and all, flies past me towards the school. The next day, Mr. V wasn't in school, and we had a substitute. And, of course, I had told some of my friends what had happened. By the end of the day, people were telling me the story, and it was completely wrong, of course. Mr. V pulled out a gun and shot him in the gut, and Mr. V stabbed him with that flip knife he has. The next week, without any explanation at all, Mr. V was back. First thing I noticed was written on the chalkboard he had, "If you ask, you go to detention." His face made it clear he wasn't to be tested and did not have a sense of humor about it. Nobody saw Amy again after that. I don't know what happened. About 5 or 6 years ago, I was telling this to a friend, and he said, "Why don't you just look her up on Facebook?" I felt stupid I hadn't thought of that. I went to my mom's, broke out my junior high yearbook, and found her last name. I'd forgotten it. When I typed it into Facebook, I found a couple dozen options since her name is pretty common. Eventually, I found her on LinkedIn, of all places. She's a high school guidance counselor and has been for almost 20 years now. Her photo looks happy. She ended up going to the University of Colorado, master's program. I Googled her a bit out of curiosity and found some articles she'd written for various anti-bullying and abuse awareness and management things. Well written. One of them was told like a fictional story. A girl came to school late every day, lacking in energy. She had no personality of note and was quiet and meek. She wore loose-fitting clothing. She had few friends. It was evident to me pretty quickly she was talking about herself. In the story she wrote, the girl had been assailed and physically abused for years by her stepdad, an abusive alcoholic. And it took a teacher with no training at all to determine what had happened and start the chain of events that ended the abuse. The point of the story was to teach other teachers what signs to watch out for, what personality traits to look for. I looked up Mr. V as well, to see how he was doing. I worried he was dead. After all, he was in his 50s or 60s back then. I found a few articles about his baseball coaching during high school and a note saying he retired in 2001. Nothing after that. No obituary or anything. I like to think he's probably just sitting around watching reruns of some show he likes, drinking a beer and playing with his grandkids, who are probably about the age Amy and I were at the time. I don't know if that's true, but that's what I like to imagine.